bit on the Fair Administrative Actions Law, although not on the law, but still again on the practice of that particular law as far as the work environment is concerned. So feel free to stop me at any point, raise your hand, ask a question as we continue, because as usual, I know at the tail end, we are normally limited with the time, so we may be limited to 3-4 questions at the tail end. But as and when you feel you need to have something clarified, please feel free to be able to raise your hand, and I'll be able to allow you, because it's purely a conversation. I'm not going to talk about the law. I'm not going to quote to you sections and provisions and articles. It's a conversation on our day-to-day aspects at our workplace. I hope I can be able to project, if I can be able to share the screen, so I can be able to project some few lines as we discuss. Yes, I'm asking for permission to share the screen. Okay, thank you.
Raymond, if you can also make me a co-host, somehow I clicked make you host.
Too bad, utakaa kwa baridi.
Sawa.
Okay, thank you. So, there are two particular areas we are going to touch on, but mostly focused majorly on the employment and data protection. So that's where we'll zero in and be able to spend so much of the time. And as I said, as we progress, please feel free to be able to let me know what you may want clarified, or be able to add something on the conversation as we go along. So briefly, we just need to understand where we are, because why data privacy, why data protection, why the emphasis on keeping information confidential as far as staff issues are concerned. So it's very critical that it's one of the very, very fundamental human rights, and our constitution has been able to spell that one out. And even the Data Protection Act, it came out courtesy of the constitution, having spelled out that we need to have a law to be able to provide for this. And this is just to guarantee the right to privacy, which is both information and your affairs, and even you yourself, so that your photos don't just get where they're not supposed to get. Details about where you live, what's the composition of your family, details about where you worked, and your medical records, and all that has to be, the people you share with, they need to be able to guarantee that, yes, they'll be able to keep that information for the purpose for which it's being requested for. So that's where we begin. And those two acts are very critical, plus the third act, which again, our mobile phones come into that space, our computers come into the space, the Kenya Information and Communication, mostly the consumer protection regulations. They are very explicit on the fact that the various service providers that we have in the market, as far as telecommunications is concerned, they need to ensure that there's no misuse of the information that we give to them. When I'm making a call, that call shouldn't be intercepted by other people who are not part and parcel of that particular call. So they have a duty to be able to ensure that. And also in the discussion, we'll be able to see how at our workplace and even in our environments within our organizations, we've given phones, we've given computers, we've given all manner of systems and gadgets to staff for some cause. But again, are we using it for that particular cause, or we are stretching it further to be able to infringe on the people's privacy? So those three laws are very, very critical. It's good for us to be able to understand them. But as I said, I'll not go into quoting for you sections. that one, for me, just to point out where to find it. So go to the Constitution, go to the Data Privacy Act and regulations, then go to these information regulations. You will be able to find much more. But this afternoon, the critical thing is to be able to see where the rubber meets the road and be able to share some insights so that tomorrow you may be better informed to be able to take some decisions at your desk. Having said this, you'll ask ourselves as to, we've heard about this data privacy, data protection. So does it just deal with our IT people or people working with our systems, our operations, and everybody else? What about HR and how do we come in? So staff records are actually personal records, and they are records which fall under the law, both from the Constitution, the law on data protection, and also the communication law. So everything that we do at our workplace is actually governed under this law. And it even begins because looking at the Employment Act, a staff or an employee, that definition extends to even somebody who has not reported to the workplace, even somebody who is not given an appointment. So prospective employees, people who are just looking for something to be able to do within your environment. So when you advertise out there, when you're recruiting, those are actually employees as far as the Employment Act is concerned for specific purposes, part of which is discrimination, and then also part of which would be data protection. So whatever you do with the information you collected from the prospective employees or prospective staff will actually fall under this particular law. So everything that we touch on our HR line, be it from recruitment, when you're coming for induction, the trainings that we do, the performance processes that we do, all the health and safety mechanisms that we have in our place, all the meetings that we have, all the stakeholder engagements that we have, basic things like even traveling, all the data and the things we share with the third parties, in fact, like travel agents, all that is information which is private to staff. And when you're collecting it, the law will require that we use it for the purpose for which it's supposed to be used. So as HR, my plea is just to ensure that we got this information just the way Safaricom will gather the information about customers, so that in the event of any breach, there are very, very dire consequences. And the Act has spelled out those consequences, which we will not go into today, because today we want to see what are we working on at our workplace. We don't want to go into many, many provisions of the law as they are spelled out. But the thing is, in the event of breach, there are actually very, very dire consequences to the tunes of both imprisonment and fines of 5 million and even above. So we need to be very, very careful in all our processes, because there is no process in HR that won't involve an issue of personal data, either sharing internally or sharing externally. And then now, how do you go about being able to ensure that you protect that information as it's required? So, as I've said, everything you do, please, our staff are our customers. So just the way you will treat those contracts you have with our customers, the same way we need to be able to deal with the consents that we are required to have with our staff. Now, there's a question which is being asked as to, for you to share the information or for even to collect the information from our staff, there's the aspect of consent. And then again, what I'm asking is, this consent that we are required to be able to obtain from staff, is it freely given, or it's consent which it's like we are compelling our staff, both prospective and even the staff that we have? So there's a dilemma there as to what happens on the HR front, because at some point, and also on the employment front, you will realize that there is actually the inequality in the power, because as an employer, you are deemed to have a higher bargaining power as compared to this prospective employee, or even a current employee within your workforce. So there are things that we may do thinking that actually we obtained consent, but at some point when we are questioned, you may realize that this consent was not actually adequate, and it drives towards an issue of compulsion. Now, when a staff is coming to, or when you're looking for employment, there's an aspect of you are not at equal footing with the employer. The employer has an upper hand, and for you, actually, you are like at the mercy of that particular employer. So a lot of things may be asked of you, and you may be compelled to actually give out the information. So part of which may come to when now somebody asks as to, was this consent given freely or it was a compulsion? So I know previously, before this particular law, many of what organizations have been doing is you put a lot of general clauses in the contract where you'll say, yes, we are collecting this information, and this information will be used by us in the course of the employment. And then we can even be able to share it with third parties without any further reference to you. And then now, as a staff, because you need the job, you sign off on the dotted line, confirming that, yes, you've given consent for this information to be used. And it may go to many, many other things, including even using information for advertising and all that. But currently with this particular law, okay, there's some echo, so I don't know whether there's somebody's mic which is on or not.
Hello.
Yes. Now, with the current information, okay, thank you. With the current information, the current law, please, if
Dorcas, please mute yourself. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. Now, so the aspect of compulsion, which the message you need to get here is that not every consent that we'll enter into with a staff will actually be valid. So we may be quick to craft a lot of templates, a lot of consents, but again, when questions are asked as to whether that consent was really clear, affirmative, simple, and very express, the staff giving out that consent, you may be told no, for reasons that this person was looking for employment, and you put too many clauses giving out waivers for that person's information to actually be spread all over. So you'll be told that's not the consent as per the law. The consent which is required here is that at that point of recruitment, you need to subject this staff to very, very relevant consents, which are actually limited to that period for recruitment. Now, if you need further use of that personal information for, like, let's say, advertising purposes, you want to share that information with other third parties for particular reasons, you want to transfer that information to your subsidiaries for 1, 2, 3, you need to be very specific and still come back to your staff to be able to ask for specific consent, saying the reason as to why now you need that consent and the period within which, and also to be able to specify to the staff that they have a right to be able to say yes or no. So that's something also very critical that we need to do, in that at each and every point that we have to be able to share staff data, we need to ask ourselves those particular questions here. What's the duration that this data is requested for? And when you have the information, what are you going to be able to use the information for? And when somebody asks whether it was freely given or not, you can actually be able to explain it to the person next to you. Now, there's this question that previously it's been an issue of discretion when staff ask for their personal information from the files that we keep. And I know in some organizations, the issue is that's confidential information. And maybe you tell the staff that information you already have. It's a letter we shared with you. So you need to go look for your copy and not come to the HR file to be able to look at it. So going forward now, all this information you've collected, when somebody is coming in and he knows you're collecting this because of the recruitment process, and then now in the course of the employment, any updates to that particular record, that's personal information, but it's not that confidential to the principal person who is the staff. So as and when they need that information, you are required by law now to be able to have access, let them have access to that information, and in a controlled way. So that access may be, yes, some data may be copied, given to the staff. Some data may just be an issue of giving the file to the staff to be able to look at particular areas where they have concern. So these requests, again, the law will require that you need to respond. So when you're saying no, you need to give reasons as to why that no is coming in. And then also there are basic requirements like salary information, promotion information, some emails between the staff and the supervisor. That's not privileged information. Other organizations at advanced stages where now there's a lot of information and data being collected from staff. And also at some point, we'll be able to look at this arrangement of working from home. There's too much information which is being collected from staff. So how do we use that particular information? And when asked, you need to give access. However, there's a rider in that there's some information which you need to tell the staff, no, this will not be able to share. And examples of that information is information which you have not gotten from staff directly, or you've engaged directly with the staff, but it's information which has come from like third parties. So it may be information like, yes, the management was discussing about that stuff on a particular aspect. So there are comments made, there are some decisions made. So that's confidential information, which is not personal. It's information about the work environment around the staff, some decisions made about that particular staff. So it's not information that the staff will say, hey, this is my personal information. That's information where you'll say, this one, even if I'm giving access to your personal file, this one will be kept confidential. Or there may be information which was shared by, let's say, you did background checks, and there's information, this third-party information, which came from another particular party with the consent of the person. But because when you communicated to the referee, you told the referee that, yes, it's confidential, it's between you and us, and will not be disclosing it to the person. So again, this information, when you're giving the file or when you are giving access to the file, it's information you can actually be able to separate from the rest of the information as you share. There's this, and yeah, exactly this is what I'm talking about, the issue of having that right to be able to save the information contained in the request, so that you don't just give the entire file, but you can actually be able to save. So you realize there's some letters in that particular file, which is not personal information, but it's information around the staff. So it's not just an issue of, because the name of the person, the name of this particular staff is on that particular email, then they have access to that particular information.
Raymond, I have muted you and I was muting the other person. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay. Yes. Now,
go back about 30 seconds. Yeah.
We normally have these questions from staff about all the information contained in my personal file is information about me, so I need to have access, or all the communications that have been done, be it from the background checks that we've done, be it from other departments about that stuff, they were reporting on something or they were making some comment about something. So the law gives us that right to be able to say, no, yes, this is your file, these are your documents about you, but not everything in this particular file is actually personal to you. So we'll share personal things to you, but for things which are from third parties, yes, there are information about you, but the law does not mandate us to be able to share that information with you. So is that variance or distinction that comes in when this information is done? Because previously, I've actually been asked these questions as to, do you give the entire file? Do you give part of the information, yes, the law actually mandates us to be able to share part and not everything. This also brings me closer to when you're doing disciplinary hearings, when you're doing not disciplinary hearings, but disciplinary process. And if it's a process which is dealing with investigations, so we normally have investigation reports which are done. Now, that investigation report contains different parts, different information. So some information are general, other information are very specific to the staff, and then other information are like recommendations and third-party information, or even information dealing with many other things other than just the subject or the disciplinary process that is happening. So you have a right as the HR, you have a right as the investigator to be able to sieve that information. And when you're sharing the investigation report to the staff who is undergoing the disciplinary process, to be able to give information relevant to the investigations and not the entire report. Because for like organizations where we are relying on an audit report, so that audit report may be containing some very confidential information about the company, but portion of it is dealing with issues where this staff has been requested to be able to show cause or be able to provide clarity. So when the staff requests for the audit report, we may make a mistake of giving out the entire report, which is now containing some other information which should not be shared with that particular staff or even the third parties, or even now end up in court. Because some of these things now, when they begin as investigations process and they end up in court. So you may find your reports in third parties' hands, which ought not to have been there, for the simple reason that somebody asked for the audit report and you gave the entire report instead of the extract of the relevant portions. So what you need to do is to sieve this information to be able to know what's information relating to third party, what information is relating to this particular disciplinary process that you are handling, that you need to share with staff. Because again, I'll add and say, there have been court judgments, which actually you ought to share these audit reports or the investigation reports when you're doing disciplinary processes freely, even without the staff asking. Because it will be unfair, even getting into that other world of unfair practices, it will be unfair to be able to give somebody a show cause. You're relying on some audit report or an investigation report without having to give that particular individual or the staff an opportunity to be able to find out what was on that particular report and the portions which are relevant. So that's also another component that when you're doing our investigations, when you're making our reports, we should make them in a way that they are reports which you can freely share. And that drives us to that what we are sharing, what we are actually coming up as reports are actually accurate, and it's information we can actually be able to defend. Next is another area that we just need to, please feel free if you have a question, you have a comment, and I hope Grace will help me by checking the chats. If there's anything that I need to respond to, I'll be glad to do that.
I'm on it.
Now, yes, there's an area here on retention of this data that we get from staff. Now, there's a general line in our Employment Act, which is the mother law as far as employment relationship is concerned. It gives us up to 5 years that we retain staff data for 5 years after the end of employment. End of employment may mean anything, and end of employment may come in many ways. So it may be retirement, it may be termination, it will be whatever other forms of exits that are there. So the law says 5 years, you are required by law to maintain that particular data. So that's the overriding line. However, there is information like for recruitment, these people who are not your staff, you are collecting that data when you are asking for applications, CVs, and some of us will go overdrive. We ask for so many things when we are just requesting prospective employees to be able to apply. So for how long do you keep that? So in your privacy policy, you need to have a time frame within which you will be able to keep those records. So is it 6 months? Is it 1 year? And that information ought to be communicated again upfront, even before somebody applies, where you'll be telling them, we are taking this data from you. This information will be kept for this particular period and for this purpose. The purpose may be, yes, for future roles, we will be able to get back to these applications which came in, or we may be able to share with our subsidiaries. So if you get a call from us or from our subsidiary, this is the reason as to why we'll be keeping this information. And then again, after that 1 year, what do you do with this particular information? You need to be able to spell out in that policy that you'll destroy it, or you'll call the person to be able to take the information. So you need to spell out as to how you'll be able to handle that data when that period lapses. Now, I'll pose a question to you. If I applied a job to your company, if I applied for a job to your company in December last year, then I write a letter to you today asking you to give me back my application and my documents. What will be your response? Because you completed, I know you completed the process, you've engaged somebody who is not me. Then I write to you nicely asking that, can I have my application back? Because you had asked many things and I attached all the things you had asked, and those were personal information to me. Then I say, hey, I need my documents back. What will be our response? You can be able to give some thought on it in the chat. Then Grace will be able to highlight to us whether what people will be saying. Or if there's somebody who wants to give a try, you can raise your hand. Anyone? Grace, I hand over to you on the chat to be able to look at it as I continue. So you'll check, yeah, on what responses may be coming in here. You'll be able to give us feedback to that particular question as to what's your response if I ask for that information.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, thanks. Now,
so there's an answer though.
Yeah, let me finish this slide and then now you'll,
okay. We can discuss. Yeah. All right, no problem.
Now, okay. There's also an interesting scenario that we also just need to be alive to for us in HR who are keeping data. I may come back to you again. There's that aspect of I've come to you, asked for the hard copies that I've submitted to you. Then there's other request which will be in this very nice English, right to be forgotten. So I submitted data to you. Then as a staff, I come to you and say, hey, can we forget about this data that I forwarded to you? So what I'm looking for is, can we erase? Can we delete this information you have about me? Now, there may be different scenarios as to when a staff can come to you and ask you to be able to delete some information that came to you, and that information no longer serves the purpose for which it was asked for. I don't know. It's again just a question I'm throwing to you as to what are those scenarios where you requested for some information from staff. That information has been given and the staff comes and says, hey, can you give me back my my data? I may think subject to discussion, an issue like CRB, the credit reference information. So at some point, maybe there's a promotion coming about, and then now you ask for some clearance. Then our staff submit. This is a person who is already in employment. Then at some point now, there's a promotion coming in, and it may even be internal, but you ask for staff to be able to provide some additional data to what you already have. So part of which may be, can you submit your credit reference information? Then the staff submits, you do the process, you promote somebody else, this staff is not promoted. Will it be right for that staff to come and say, hey, I submitted this report, can I have my report back? Or there was a time when you're investigating something, you ask for my M-Pesa statement, I freely give because you thought I'm having some fishy business with the supplier. I submitted my M-Pesa statement. That process has been finished. The investigation is complete. Can I come back and ask for that particular information? So you may make a call. Do you really want to have this information for long, and for what reason? It was information requested for a specific purpose, and for that time when you're asking for that M-Pesa statement from the staff for this particular course, and this course has been spent, do you have a reason to keep this data, or the staff can come and say, hey, can we delete this from this particular record? Or there was a time we are looking for, there's an event coming up, so we come take staff photos. So many photos are taken of people. You keep a record of it. So at some point, staff can come and say, hey, this event is over. The photos were used. So can you delete my photos from the record? So there are various scenarios that the staff can come to you asking. You ask for information about a specific event, a specific process. The process is finished. So the law requires that, yes, you make that call, be able to see, do you still want to keep maintaining this information? So that also brings me to the aspect of when data protection processes have come in, there's an aspect of ensuring that we limit the information that we ask from our staff or even prospective employees. So that instead of asking everything in the advertisement or in our communication to the prospective employers, let's be very minimal, because we're just going to the crowd to be able to seek for information. But we will zero in to 3 people whom we are going to interview. So can we limit so that for the entire public, we only get the very minimum that will make us be able to do the shortlisting. Then at the shortlisting, the people we are now coming to be able to interview, we now request for the extra documentation that we need. So it's also a call that we need to make as we brush and be able to revise and review and formulate our privacy policies. We step back, be able to say, hey, we don't need everything that we've been asking before. Let's be a little bit measured and ensure that we are taking these concerns. Now, there's just a moment. Okay. My screen was freezing. Now, there's also another aspect for, okay. I've remembered that, Grace, we were to get some feedback from the chat. I don't know whether.
Yeah, we had one or a number. There's Farah who says, depending on your document retention period, if it's 6 months or 1 year, after the time lapse, you can give back the documents. Lillian says, depends on the time frame of which we keep the information. Question Ray, is it right for an employer to request all employees for bank statements and M-Pesa statements? And then Hezron had asked, hi, Bro Raymond, thanks for always a pleasure. Kindly elaborate on section 74.2 vis-a-vis section 10.6 of the EA. That's all on the chat.
Okay. There's the 5 years, there's the 3 years. So the overriding principle here is just a moment. Just a moment. I begin with the last one, the one for M-Pesa. Then I come to, so there's M-Pesa, then there's Hezron's question. And, okay, I think those are the 2 questions. But I've not seen my response. The response to what
it's
what
there.
I had asked.
From 2 people only, though. From Farah, she said, depending on your documents, retention period, and Lillian says depends on the time frame of which you keep information. So the opinion is that you can give back the documents after that period.
But you've recruited the person, so whether it's 1 year, this person has come and is asking for the information. So do you have any other reason? Because if it hasn't been asked, then you can give. But because it has been asked, I believe you have no reason to not to give. Because again, yeah, that also addresses something which we say there is a staff who may give consent, but again, he changes their mind and withdraws. So if I write to you saying, can you give me the information? It seems it actually just basically means I've withdrawn the consent for you to keep having my documents for 6 months or keep having my documents for 1 year. So technically, that's what it means. When now I write to you saying, can you give me back my documents? You can't start saying, my policy says I have to hold onto these documents for the next 1 year. And I said, I need them now. But for those who have not asked, yes, your policy now comes in where now you'll be able to retain the documents for the rest of the 6 months or for the rest of the 1 year.
Raymond, like, can I keep copies though?
No, if I withdraw the consent, what I mean is, I need you to erase the record you have with me. So you can only keep copies with my permission, and also you tell me why you need to keep the copies. Or if you're keeping copies is allowed by law, because now, like what you're saying, if you're already staff, and then the staff comes and says, hey, by the way, I left employment, so can I have a copy of my entire file that you have? So that one you'll come back to the staff and say, yes, it's actually personal information to you. However, I'll make a copy for you, but I'll retain a copy because the law allows me to keep this record for the next 5 years. So it will vary. So if the law allows you, or there's a regulation, or there's a process which allows you to keep for that particular period, or you have a good reason, like there's some investigations going on. So this matter is in court, there's an investigation going on, so I need to keep records of this. You'll be able to do that. But where outrightly somebody has withdrawn the consent and they need their documents, you have no business even keeping copies. Because again, like for this application, job applications, in your policy, you need to say after the 1 year, you'll destroy them. And how are you going to destroy them? Not destroying them and keeping soft copies, because that's not destroying, that's not erasure. So you need to completely destroy after the 1 year, and also tell the prospective employees how you are going to be able to destroy that. Okay, now there's a M-Pesa statement. Is it right for an employer to request all employees for bank statements and M-Pesa statements? Very good question. Sina jibu, and I'm conflicted. That's why I'm not. I'll say pass. If it was within the bank environment, in the bank environment, for us we are regulated. So I'm speaking like a banker. For us we are highly regulated. So at some point we may ask for this information for regulatory purposes. More specifically, if you're recruiting for a senior role, or even if you are in a regular employee, you've been around for 20 years, we'll still come back to you, ask for some M-Pesa statement, ask for your bank statements, because it's a regulatory requirement for the fit and proper. So there's a vetting that we normally do cyclic, because it's a regulatory issue. And then also, other than banks, there are some work environments I worked in previously. Again, we used to do this routine, but that's because of specifically the environment and the regulatory around the industry in which that employer is. So you may require this specifically because there's a purpose for it. Now, in all other companies and organizations, it's not right to just ask all staff to be able to say, give me a bank statements, give me M-Pesa statement. It's not. That's personal information. That's protected information and protected property that is not supposed to be shared. It can only be shared with a specific objective. So the employer need to justify as to why. And even in banks, again, we don't ask all staff. And I've said the regulator doesn't ask for all staff. The fit and proper is limited to particular cadre. The other one is the normal background checks that we normally do, which will not go into bank statements and M-Pesa statements here. But for the rest of the other industries, if you're not compelled by law, this is an infringement on staff rights to require that all staff be able to provide that information. It has to be specific. If you are investigating something, and like I said, yes, if you feel I've done some monkey business with suppliers, you have a right to be able to ask, and it's not compulsion. It has to be a request, and the staff will be able to give that information or refuse to give that information. Then now you can be able to make the call or make a decision as to what you need to do with the staff who has not given the information, or for the staff who has been able to give information. But outright, asking all staff en masse to be able to submit bank statements and M-Pesa statements, that's a violation of their privacy, because you're not investigating everybody unless unless maybe it's an employer, a house, your house girl and your shamba boy. So kuna kitu imepotea kwa nyumba, so you go asking all your staff, who are two staff, to be able to submit those documentation. So if it's not that scenario, then it's a violation of people's rights. Now, I'll turn to my chairman, Rachilo, on section 10.6 and section 74.2. If my memory serves me well, it talks about 74.2 is the requirement to give employment records up to 3 years when an inspector comes to inspect records at the workplace. And section 10.6 talks about the information we collect from staff when they're joining, and the law requires us to keep that information for 5 years after employment has lapsed. Now, the difference with these two sections is, one is dealing with current employment, in that employment is ongoing. So if any inspection is being done by anyone, any regulatory or anyone coming to your premises to inspect anything, by law, they're only supposed to come and check for records up to 3 years. Anything above that, they need to have a court order to be able to say, hey, it's either crime, so crimes don't have a limit, so we are asking for 10-year records. However, this requirement for after staff has left, for you to keep those records for up to 5 years now serves another purpose, in that if a staff was left, he comes seeking anything in regard to the employment, you need to have these records intact. Again, if there is a regulator who comes and asking for this particular information, now they can go further to ask for information up to 5 years, because the law says when staff leaves, you need to keep this record after up to 5 years. But for existing staff, if you're looking at your records for existing staff, that can only be kept up to 4 years. So there's a distinction as to people who have left and people who are still in employment. And then now this 74 most specifically is just for regulatory purposes, for people who are coming to your premises to be able to say, hey, are you complying with the law as far as your employment environment is concerned? So that one, we need to keep that information. But for the 10 section 10.6 deals with any inquiries in people who have left your premises. That one, the 5-year period applies. So that's the distinction on those two sections. They serve different purposes. That's why they have different time frames. Thank you. I hope, Grace, I've been able to do some justice to what's on your chat. Now.
Yes, you have.
Okay, thank you. So just touching on, yes.
Lillian added whether her question, if it's not a bank, what happens? Oh, she has said, thank you. Henry is saying CCTV surveillance. Are they supposed to be installed in HR office? Is that also a violation of privacy?
CCTV surveillance, are they supposed to be installed in HR office? Is that also a violation of privacy? Okay. I don't know what Henry, what I wish you could elaborate more. Henry, unaweza ongea? Well, if I understand, if I just want to understand him, there are common areas, and then there are offices which are a bit secluded. So if I get Henry in that particular question, it seems this HR office is a bit secluded. It's not part of the open office plan, because most of the office open plans, they have CCTV cameras, so everything happening within the office area plan, it's monitored. Now, about now this secluded environments, it's a workplace, and in a workplace, there's nothing confidential, nothing private. So CCTV cameras, in fact, for me, I'll recommend, if you have CCTV cameras at the workplace, it ought to be covering each and every corner in that workplace, other than the washrooms. So all senior managers, if there are cameras in the open office plan, they also need to be cameras in the senior staff secluded offices, so that we are monitoring the work area. And this HR, because HR office, you are not a private office, because you are serving customers. So there'll be outsiders who will come to your office. There'll be staff coming to your office. Yes, you have files, but the CCTV camera is not coming to pick information from your files. The CCTV camera is not coming to pick files from your office and your cabinets. So CCTV cameras, if the best policy is, if they are within the working spaces for open spaces, they should also be in the working areas for everybody else. In fact, it will be good and bring a lot of transparency, because again, people come to HR and raise all manner of issues, and they'll say we did 1, 2, 3, or there was 1, 2, 3 that happened. So those cameras will help you. So for me, I'll advise that if you're having CCTV cameras, let it be open to all offices. Then it also builds the confidence and the transparency that it's actually just an open office. It's just that it happened that some are in some secluded environment because of either meetings or 1, 2, 3 things, but there isn't private environments within the workplace. So that will be my short response to that. But for you to install this, let it be uniformly applied, other than the areas I've mentioned, the washrooms, or if there are mothers' rooms. So those are the only environments where now you keep the CCTV cameras off. Now, talking of that, there is the current arrangement for some organizations where, or others now, we picked it up courtesy of COVID on the remote working, and we do a lot of personal stuff, both within the office, at home, or even now in between. We may be in between home and office, but work is going on. And then now we have gadgets. So we have phones, we have computers, and other people have gone a step further to be able to see, if I drop an email, you will be able to see whether that email is, I'm doing that email from Kasarani, or that email is coming from Mombasa, or that email is coming from Nakuru. So even when you're working on email, you can't even lie. You can't tell us you are working from home and you're in Nairobi, and yet you are in Nakuru. So there are all this manner of developments that employers have been able to do. So they track staff up to the location where you are. You are given a phone, and that phone, unfortunately, it's so linked to the work system, so we can be able to trace you and even be able to get the information that is on your phone without going through Safaricom or without having to come for your consent, because you signed something when you are coming in and you're using that. So that may be infringement. So we just need to draw a line as to, yes, we have all these systems we are using to be able to collect staff data, but let's not go too much into being intrusive into people's lives. Because like, yes, I have a phone and you are following me wherever I'm going, and you even start asking me some questions, part of which just revolving around how I was moving and what hours I was working. So these gadgets are given, but they need to be for work purposes. However, when we give them to staff, we also need to be proactive and be able to alert staff, be able to tell them, this phone we're giving you, it has this capability. We'll be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just ensure that when you're doing your private businesses, you don't do them on the phone. So it will locate where you are, but we want to be able to pick the other information that is going on and around you. So it's good for you to notify staff upfront so that something doesn't happen and then now it's mingled up, both work and office, and then now you are having too much information, private personal information from staff, which you ought not to be having as the employer. So it's just a rider that, yes, we're having all these things, but let's be cautious of what we are keeping, what we are retaining, and what just needs to be deleted automatically when we see them. Yes, this part of what I was saying, yes, we are, to an extent, much of the gadgets that we have, it's like now we are spying on staff, which ought not to happen. And we rely on clauses which staff have signed, and those clauses are very general, but the law says this is an infringement. So we ought to just be cautious as to what we are doing. This one we talked about on recruitment. Just be careful when we are doing our recruitments, just to be able to ensure that information is very specific. When we are sourcing for candidates, there's nowadays we do very little of advertising. We do a lot of social media. So be very, very deliberate in the social media as to the identity of who you are. Why are you requesting that information for how long are you requesting that particular information? And if you are going to be able to use that information further. Apologies, somebody muted me again. So sorry. Yeah, on the recruitment again, yeah, it's a process that we need to be able to ensure that, yes, we revise our processes and how we collect the information, how we go to social media, advertising what we are looking for. So we need to be very specific, identify ourselves. Specifically, let's identify our organizations, mostly in social media aspects. Otherwise, we may get ourselves into challenges as far as this information I gave, but you are not so clear as to where the information was going, what that information was going to be used for, and you've now transferred that information to a third party without the consent of the candidates. Still on recruitment, there are background checks. On this, I know some of us, it hasn't dawned on us when colleagues ask us for background checks on staff who have worked with us. So it's a risky area that we need to be alive to, so that we now going forward, we demand for consent. So if it's a staff who has worked for you and a third party, it's a prospective employer for them, or a recruitment or an agency carrying out the background checks, asking for information, please let's ask for consents from that particular former staff that, yes, they have been able to give a written consent for these background checks, including checking with former employers. Because again, there are some consents which are very general. It has to be very specific that, yes, I'm giving consents for you to be able to go and ask information from my previous employers, then now we can actually be able to share the information. And again, you make a call as to what you will share and what you will not be able to share, because yes, when questions are asked as to why you share this information, it's something you can actually be able to defend. There is, this is due to the fact that you think it's a staff looking for employment elsewhere, but he may object to those checks being done, or even now you are the one recruiting, so you ask the prospective employee to be able to give consent and they say no. So you need to respect that no and stop the process, or review the reasons and be able to take another route, or revise the content of the background checks that you are asking. So it has empowered staff to be able now to interrogate further, ask questions, object, or even now revise that form, the consent form that actually giving out for people to be able to sign off. And more so, have this consent, the law talks of written consent. So it must be a consent that you can actually be able to demonstrate to a third party when you are put to question as a HR. So a phone call is not a written consent. So a phone call is not consent. So always insist on a written, signed, or if it's an email, the staff is doing an email to you, the former staff is doing an email to you, or this prospective staff is doing an email to you agreeing for you to be able to do the background checks, which can be prospective candidates or former staff, somebody else is doing a background check on them. Yeah. So phone calls will not amount to consent because you will not be able to prove it. And the law has put a higher burden on employers, and specifically now the HR person, because you're the one who will be required to be able to justify why you gave out the information or why you did this process without the consent. So another area, as I wind up on these privacy issues and we get into some conversations of the questions, is commercial purposes as far as staff are concerned. So general rule is please don't use information you've collected from your staff for commercial purposes. And even don't put those clauses in your employment documents as a general clause. It has to be very specific. Other than when you need to use staff information for commercial purposes, you need to go back to the staff to be able to ask for consent. And you know, these will be staff who are you've already identified. You want to use them for the information for one or two issues. So you need to go the consent, which is clearly explaining the reason, the duration, and what's the project or what's the agenda as to why you need that to be done. So the only exceptions are you use it for commercial purposes when there's an express consent or the law allows you to be able to collect that data. And then also another rider, even when the consent has been given, you can still have a further discussion with the staff. So that yes, you're using the information for commercial purposes, but you need to modify the information in a way that it may be difficult for somebody to be able to identify that particular staff from that commercial agenda that you are pursuing as an employer or as an organization. Then just as a summary on many of the things that I've talked about, just remember, yes, we are collecting personal data from staff. What must we use it for? It needs to be lawful cause. Let's not just share it for the sake of sharing it because it has come to our hands. It needs to be specific. As I've said, when I'm in employment, don't go back to the clauses that I signed when I was joining because the bargaining power wasn't equal. And even when I'm in employment, the bargaining power again is not equal. So when an employer asks for something, it's like, it's an ask, but it's like you're being compelled. So let's have a discussion with the staff. Let's check even the body language, because you know somebody may sign some document, but the body language doesn't demonstrate that. Part of which may be things like there are consents which courts don't recognize, or agreements, because you may agree with stuff like I don't see them nowadays, but I was seeing them previously, where when a staff is leaving, you compute their final dues, and again, he has left in an acrimonious situation. So you compute their final dues, and then now in the letter there, you indicate that the staff has agreed that this is the final and full payment, no further claim from the staff to the company, and then the staff signs. So such agreements or such clauses, wherever they may be appearing, the employee may think you're protected, but when you're put to test in court as to whether that actually amounts to consent or it amounts to a fair agreement, the staff will just come and say it was under duress. I had lost employment. I needed this money to be able to pay rent. So I had to take whatever the company was giving. But that was not the lawful dues. So I'm still coming to court asking for my lawful dues, despite the fact that I signed something waiving my rights to be able to challenge the decision that has been taken by the employer. So those contents may not help you much. You need to dig deeper into how they've been obtained and are they fair. Then, yeah, just also another liner, but it's something that we have discussed, is the right to object at all times. When you're doing any process, please ask the staff, are we together on this? Just like when you're doing disciplinary processes, when you have a panel, before you begin the discussion, ask the staff, are you comfortable with everybody around the table, or there's somebody you don't want to be on this table? So even on this particular aspect, just have that at the back of your mind, that there's that right for the staff to be able to object to this information that you're asking. So ask that question and please be able to document it. I'll stop there on data privacy, and I only have this is what you're seeing on fairness. Fairness is a very, very big subject. So I'll not go into the law. I'll only point a few areas that as HR we need to be just extra cautious when we are handling it. They're very simple processes we do in people issues, but we just need to be conscious that are we doing them in a fair? And if somebody asks a question, can we be able to justify what we've actually been able to do? So I've just pointed a few, but I'll open up for you to be able to ask many more, and I'll be happy to respond to them. So leave administration, it's a very simple thing, leave. So what about leave? But it may give rise to many conflicts, many risks at the workplace. So if I ask a simple question, leave, should somebody go and leave by agreement, or as an employer, you have a right to be able to do it, to push somebody to go and leave? It's yes or no. The law says by agreement. But if his staff is not going on leave, as HR, you can actually be able to compel. Or as the supervisor, you're actually entitled to compel the staff to go and leave. Because again, in the workplace, it's the employer or the supervisor who determines what work is to be done, when and how. So the staff cannot tell you, I'm not going on leave because there's so much on my desk. As a supervisor, you can be able to make that call and say, hey, stand up, you must go on leave, because these are also other implications on other things as a supervisor, and then also as a HR person here. So it may be as simple as that, but you're making that decision. The key thing would be, where is the staff in all this conversation? So the fairness is, has the staff's story or position been heard? Has he been given an opportunity to say something? Because at a workplace, be it disciplinary process, be it performance processes, be it like performance process, we are setting targets. As a supervisor, you know, yes, you have an upper hand, you know the strategy, you know what needs to be accomplished, you know what the board has been able to agree on with you to be able to execute. So when you're discussing with staff, yes, there is that given, that the parameters within which you need to do it to execute the strategy. But to the staff, when you're setting the targets, it shouldn't be compulsory. It should be an issue of the staff was given a chance to be able to make a contribution, add value, subtract, make some review, or even make comments. You may not even be changing anything. It's just an issue of we had a discussion, comments were done, and we made a decision to be able to proceed this way. So that's what Fair Administration, Administrative Act requires, and the fairness in your decisions. Because even when you're challenged and even in court for disciplinary hearing processes, the court doesn't want to really look at that aspect of was it beyond reasonable doubt? No, it's just an issue of on a balance of probability. When we weigh these things, you are saying you performed and you didn't perform. When we weigh it, where does it fall? Did the person perform or he didn't perform? Or a situation where you're saying on reasonable grounds, I suspect that there's some insubordination here. It's not an issue of proving it beyond. It's an issue of looking at the facts, where do the scales move to. So in matters leave, there's also the other question people keep asking. Somebody has gone on annual leave, he falls sick. Now, the staff comes to request for sick leave during annual leave. Did you give that staff a chance to be able to explain why they're asking for that particular leave and what were the reasons behind that particular request? So you just need to give an ear to listen, run it maybe with the supervisor, because you are in HR and then there's a supervisor at the other end, be able to see, yes, is it something you can be able to take on board? Is it something we cannot be able to take on board? There are aspects of staff having preterm babies and they stay in hospital. So how do you treat their maternity leave? Does it start when they're still in hospital or does it start when they've been discharged? Paternity leave, again, another thing. When does it start? When does it end? Somebody has numerous spouses. They all deliver in 1 year. It's an issue of administration. The law only gives bare minimums, but as an employer, how are you administering it? And again, is it fair in that you're doing it uniform to equally or fairly or equity to all staff? Because actually, at the workplace, there's nothing like equality, it's equity. So there are aspects of, can we see the equity and the fairness? And fairness comes in that it's justifiable. You did something different to staff X as compared to staff Y. You need to have reasons. So it may appear discriminatory, but with good reasons, that will be appear to be a fair administrative action which you've taken. Change in terms, same thing to, I get questions as to, you have an open contract, you want to change it into fixed term contract. So what's the involvement of staff? And have they understood the business strategy as to why this needs to be that way? So it will be fair if the staff has been involved, they have been able to understand the reasons. Again, it won't be fair if it's like discriminatory. It's only focused on post after and it's not the entire organization or discriminatory. It's only focused on the organization. Same thing to, we have regular staff, we want to convert them into outsourced staff. Where does the staff fall? And have you consulted? Have you had some discussions? You want to reduce benefits? Yes, you can as an employer, part of which may be medical, pension, and others, but have you had a discussion? So these discussions doesn't mean we are agreeing. It's not an issue of, it's not a union negotiation where we are agreeing and signing a CBA. It's just an issue of demonstrating that, yes, I had the staff, we made these adjustments, having had the review, and we took this decision. Or we had the staff, but we couldn't be able to match up to what was being proposed. And then now our initial decision still stands. Acting positions, very simple at the workplace. It's at the administrative actions. There is an acting position which is available. How are we administering it? Is it rotational? Because we may have like 5-6 staff in the same position below the person who is absent for whatever reason. Now they need to act. So how do you do it? It's an administrative decision you are taking. And what's the message to the rest of the team? So are you rotating? Do you have a plan for succession planning? So now the designated people who, when somebody is not there, somebody is acting. And has it been communicated or has it been cultured to the rest of the team to be able to know this is what's happening? Because now it may tend to be favoritism, discrimination, if somebody challenges you on that. So there are decisions we take, very simple decisions at the workplace, but when asked, we may not have answers to them. So we just need to be prepared on these fairness issues, which are becoming, people are becoming alive to them, and they're asking questions. And even as a progressive HR professional, you just need to be alive to them when you're doing them, as you have discussions to be able to understand, why are we doing this? Why are we doing it this way and not that way? Same to promote demotions. The law allows for demotions. How are we doing them? But again, are they unilateral, or the staff is actually aligned to that decision up to leading to the demotion? Retirement. We retire people on medical grounds, but have we given them an opportunity to be heard? Or have we given them alternatives? Or we only rely on a medical report, and then now we give staff matching orders that the doctor has said this, so this is the decision we are taking. We do a lot of job evaluations, which may lead to many results, part of which may be you are moving some positions lower, you are retaining some people in some roles, or you are moving and shifting some roles. So while the staff involved, or even to come up with the final decision, while the staff involved. So these are some of the things that we need to be alive to, and to be able to, when we are taking those decisions, just to be able to follow up and ensure that as and when we are doing this, we're having that continuous conversation with our staff, so that any third party asking or a staff coming to you, because they come, and nowadays people are very alive to the fact that yes, our environments are very open and people can come and have conversations with us on any particular subject. Let's be alive when we are doing any step, any process, to just have the justifications. If you are not very sure, there are colleagues around to be able to ask and share, just to know that yes, you are on the right page. So I'll stop there. I think we have the next 30 minutes to be able to look at any further additions, any subtractions, questions, clarification, and the rest. Thank you, Grace. Over to you.
So Raymond, something, okay, I need to mute one gadget. Can you hear me clearly?
Your two gadgets are still on.
And now, better?
You are clear now.
Okay. I wanted to just ask.
Grace, there's some sound, some echo.
Yeah, nimetoa simu.
Thank you. Yeah, it's okay now.
Yeah. So I know, out of curiosity, somebody was asking the other day whether, you know, the way people go on maternity leave and they want to combine it with their annual leave.
Yes.
Can it be forced? Can it be, because you've said leave is management's discretion.
Yes.
And there's a lady here who's been on maternity for 3 months, and the organization feels like it's time for them to come back.
Yes.
And the lady wants to take their annual leave.
Okay.
Can they be asked to come back?
Okay. Now, maternity is a bit special and highly protected by law. So, and that actually also has been addressed by law, which says that if the staff intends to combine both maternity and the leave, that should be given. Actually, the employer should not come in and say no. It's like automatic. So it's just the employer to ask. And then now it's just the employee to ask, and the employer have no option to say no. You need to, it's like given. Because reading the Employment Act, it has explained that, saying yes, if the leave is being combined by maternity, actually all those 2 leaves now, they form part and parcel of maternity. So all the 4 months will be treated as if the staff is just still on maternity. And the reason as to why the law has done that is to ensure that they protect this staff employment. So when that staff comes after the 4 months, she just comes back as if she's coming from maternity leave. So those conditions that apply during maternity, in that you should not change her salary, you should not declare her redundant unless it was the last resort. All those things apply. And if her job has changed, you need to give her an equivalent job. But you know what maternity law means is that it secures the staff employment until they come back, and then now you can now be able to do what you want to do in the normal course of employment. But when they're still on maternity, you can't be able to exercise a lot of discretion as the employer. So that's a simple question, in that the law protects that particular period. So the 4 months is still maternity, and it's not like paternity leave, where the law actually gives leeway for the employer to say, no, you can't proceed on paternity leave this week. Please, there's so much work. Can you go on paternity leave next week? Because that one is spelled in law. But for maternity, when the staff asks for the extra months, which is part and parcel of their annual leave, it's a given. It needs to be given.
And the issue of stillbirth, like what is allowed? I know there's the H in HR, and I know some people here there was a discussion in one of the groups the other day where people are asking how long is the H in HR to be applied, especially in cases of stillbirth.
Now, yeah, unfortunately, the law has not provided much clarity. So if there's stillbirth, the law expects that the full maternity period runs. That's actually the reading of the law, because it has no provisos as to that particular area. However, again, now it's an issue of the fairness. So if you craft your policy in that the judge looking at it will be able to see the fairness in it, where now you can be able to put to actually put some criteria as to, yes, is it the full 3 months or is it the 2 months? If at all like you're talking of miscarriage, the miscarriage comes some months before. But if the miscarriage is happening at 8 months or 9 months, that one is just like full maternity. So the 3 months got to happen here. But it's a miscarriage happening at the 6th month or the 7th month, you can actually be able to have it in your policy, because there is the recovery period. Don't convert it to sick leave, because now you will be, that's unfair, because you know that means you actually the staff can only be on sick leave on full pay for 1 month, and then now after that other things kick in which are very unfair. So my advice will be, matters around stillbirth, around miscarriage should not be treated as sick leave, because I know there are organizations which straight away they treat it as sick leave, not maternity. But the law on maternity doesn't give clarity. There was an attempt in, I think, a bill, a lot of papers which have been moving around. Somebody was trying to be able to provide something around that, in that, yes, in case of stillbirth, there'll be 1 month period, but I think that's very unfair, because, again, if it's a stillbirth at 8 months or even the 9 months, and then now the baby doesn't come alive, it's very unfair to be able to tell the lady that, hey, you can only be out for 1 month and then be able to come out. Yeah. So that law can be crafted in a way that we look at the periods. Yes. How many weeks was it? Be able to say, yes, the full 3 months. If the period was still way back, then I can be able to adjust it to 2 months. Because there's a lot of things around it, and then the psychology bit of it here. So it's still an ongoing conversation, but the law, the way the proposed revised law is again not good, So I think when it comes of age and we are supposed to give comments, we need to be very strong on that aspect of can it be the full 3 months if it's 7 months onwards, but if it's 7 months and below, then yes, we can talk of 2 months. I think that will be fair, and we'll be dealing with the H in H area. Thank you. Hi, Grace. Any?
Sorry, yes, sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute.
Okay.
There's somebody who had asked if one has not been giving consent forms for background checks and the staff are around, how do you correct the error?
So previously, the consents have not been given. The good thing is we are dealing with a new law, so you haven't done anything wrong. It's just that things weren't clear, but now things are clear because actually the regulations have come in this year. They've become effective this year. So it was an issue of the law wasn't there, so you can't be punished for the law which wasn't there. But now going forward, and actually it's from June this year, when all these regulations will fully be enforced and active. So we need now to just ensure that yes, whatever we are discussing now, when you're collecting all this information, let the staff be able to ask for, if it's another company asking for background checks from you, please ask for the consent. And if it's you who is seeking for background checks, please ensure that this prospective staff gives the clear consent that you're collecting this information from previous employers or from these other third parties here. So it's just to be able to ensure that going forward, you do that. And then now for the cyclic, even for the people who are in employment, you ensure that yes, as and when you do the cyclic checks, you get clear consents from staff.
Okay. And then Florence is saying, Raymond, is it allowable for an employee to refer to an employee, for an employee to refer to an employee in writing by another job title other than which is in one's employment contract? E.g., when assigning duties, instead of senior administration officer, they simply write administrator. Is it allowable for an employer to refer to an employee in writing by another job title other than that which is in one's employment contract? E.g., when signing duties, instead of senior administration officer, they simply write administrator.
No, I hear you. And yeah, there's so much that goes into that question. So we know your role. Your role is on the job, the letter you have, the appointment letter you have. So it talks of the senior administrator. So, and if this communication, and I guess it's a communication which is either being done on email or it's a letter which is being done, because you know, when we are communicating in the workplace, I'll refer you by name. In fact, we rarely use titles unless it's other places where there's some big people who feel very nice. They don't want to be called by their name, so you have to say dear CEO or dear general manager. You don't refer to people's names. But in our other environments, for us, we are no respect of persons, so we refer to people by their first names when we're doing on email. So in this environment, yes, it may be speaking to something. If it's your supervisor is giving you an assignment, and then now they're using a different term other than the term that is an appointment letter, it means you need to interrogate to be able to know why are they using it, why are they using that? Because again, it may have implications, because there are stuff, and I've seen court cases which have been of this nature, where now the appointment letter says something else, but the other documents addressing you says something else. So a challenge comes at some future period where we're asking, what work am I doing? Or you're being taken through a performance process where you're being told you're underperforming on this role. But for me, I'm saying my letter says this particular role. So what am I? Then now the court will go back and say, what is in your appointment letter? Then now I'll refer you back to I'll refer you back to section 10, where my friend Hezron Rachilo was referring us to. It says, when these things of title and the critical information about your employment changes, the employer is duty bound to be able to change it by communicating. So they'll communicate to you on email saying your role has changed from this to this, or your employment terms have changed from this to this, and it must be done in writing here. So if that writing has not been written and somebody is calling you by other names, you need to interrogate that. There may be other names, which may be either somebody is promoting you and calling you CEO and yet you are manager, or somebody is calling you an officer and yet you are manager. In all those scenarios, you need to interrogate. So usikae tu na feel sweet because now you're being called CEO and you are not CEO. You need to interrogate where that CEO is coming from. Because next month, you may be told you are underperforming in the role of CEO and yet you are not CEO. So it's good to be able to get clarity. Even if it's a sweet term that somebody is using here, you need to do that here. Thank you.
Okay, and then Danson is asking, Raymond, you mentioned about an employee who is on annual leave and is given sick leave. Should the company pause the annual leave first, then resume after sick leave? From your experience, what is your take on this?
I have no answer. It's just an example given. Because for me, my simple answer will be, what's the purpose for sick leave? It's to allow you not to come to work and be paid. Now, what's the purpose for, that's the purpose for the sick leave. But here, you are not required to come to work because you are already on annual leave. So you don't need the sick leave because you're already on annual leave. I don't expect you at the workplace. So you ought to be able to treat yourself, come back to work after the leave. It's just unfortunate that you're on leave and the sick leave, you are sick during that particular period. Yeah. So that will be my legal response, but my human response will be different. The difference is, I may look at your sick leave in two ways. Kama ni sick leave yenye wewe uko na malaria na haujakuwa admitted, you go get treated as an outpatient and go back home, I'll not suspend the annual leave. It will continue. But if it's a serious thing where now you are sick and you've been admitted, then I may consider as a human aspect to be able just to consider to suspend the annual leave, and then now the sick leave kicks in because you are admitted. But hii ingine ya kwenda kupata Panadol alafu unapewa sick leave. Again, it will be very difficult for me even to manage that particular affair. Based on my experience and the kind of some of the stuff that we have, it may be misused, and more so when you're dealing with big organizations here. So for big organizations, you don't know everybody. So just be strict on the law. Say sick leave is because you are not supposed to come to work, so we are not breaking. But if you are a small organization, I know everybody around, and najua ukora sio mingi, I may be a bit cautious and allow that to happen here. But the law is not there, so it's how you work around it.
Okay, I hope that's satisfactory. Lucy Moy is saying, please expound on the process of changing terms from open contract to fixed term, especially where there is a union.
Open to fixed, yeah. Mine on fair administrative process is where there's no union. Please involve a lot your staff to be able to understand why they change, and then also just to ensure that there is no discrimination when you're doing that process. So if it's a strategic plan which is coming from the top, you need to communicate that to the employees that yes, it's a decision which has been made at the top and it's affecting everybody from the CEO to the last person in the organization. We are changing the way our contracts are structured. Or if it's just the senior management, it's a change and it has to apply. That communication has to be done. And it's a communication for fair administration actions, as I said. It's not for the staff to agree. It's to communicate and to allow for discussion. But nothing is changing. It's a decision that we are taking. So unless you don't want to work for us, because actually it can be a ground for us to be able to either declare you redundant if you feel you don't want to change from the open-ended contract to fixed-term contract here. So we'll give you our reasons as to why we have to do this. If you say no, then you say now there's no employment for you, so you have to look for employment elsewhere. So we'll not terminate you, but now you have to think for ways of which the best way is to declare a person redundant, because now it's a business strategy and you need to move forward with it. For the union, again, the same thing. You have to convince the union as to why you need to move from open-ended to fixed-term contracts. It will be a tall order, but it's doable. It just means you have to discuss it well, and then also check the timing when you are bringing that into question. Because again, you can give it can be a give and take, which you can be able to say, yes, we are converting this from open-ended to fixed-term, but we are giving you this particular benefit. Because the union it's again very easy to handle the union. Because you have to look at yourself around your organization, be able to look at what you can be able to accommodate, and now be able to do give and take. Because it's something you're taking away from the union, but in exchange, most of the time the union will ask you, what are you giving us? So you can even agree to be able to do a higher pay increase for that particular year alone, for that particular reason. And you can be able to be very clear with the union saying, yes, give us this, and then we'll give you 8% instead of 4%. The union will agree, because they'll be able to go and convince the union. And even many staff will also agree, because they'll be saying, hey, this 8% will have gotten it in 2 years, but we've gotten it in this 1 year. And again, many of the staff are short-term. So they look at, hey, what's coming to the pocket now? Again, the other strategy is you go talk to your staff directly without the union knowing what you're doing. So get the buy-in from the staff that, yes, we are thinking of this. And then now you come to the union, because your shop stewards. Because dealing with the union, again, it's easy if you have a good relationship with your shop stewards. Work through the shop stewards, get your difficult message through them, give them, actually ask for options. If you are asking for this difficult thing from you, what can we give you in exchange? They'll give you options saying, if you give us this, we'll be able to go and convince staff to be able to agree to this. And then now when the national union comes in, it will be an easy conversation, because now there's a give and take. So for me, when you go to the union seeking for some difficult decision to be taken, please be prepared to give something in return. Thank you.
All right. Pala is saying, I employed someone, a male, on a short-term contract where he was to work for 4 months. In the beginning of the 4th month, he brought a birth notification. Do you issue him with a paternity leave, or what do you do?
Yeah, simple. Paternity leave has to be given, irrespective of the duration. Who unto you if you employed somebody for 14 days and then on reporting they come with the birth notification? You must give the paternity leave, or look for ways to be able to convince that staff saying, hey, I'm in effect, you need to be around for the 14 days, but I'll pay you for the 14 days, because your contract ends on the 14th day when you are supposed to have paternity leave. So you have to agree, either pay in lieu, and the staff must agree, even if they were just coming to work for you for the 14 days. Same to maternity leave. Yeah, if you employ staff, they are on 6 months fixed-term contract, and when they report, they tell you, hey, by the way, I'm due for maternity, or even before they report, they tell you, hey, the baby has come, so I'm beginning my maternity. You allow the staff to be on maternity, the 3 months to run, you pay, and then they come and finish the rest of the 3 months, and then now you close the contract. So that one has no discussion. So for paternity, we just discuss, but if it's like the scenario I've explained, you have the only discussion is that you have to tell the staff, hey, by the way, hey, you have to work for 14 days. I'll pay you for the 14 days, but you need to be here because you are the only person who can be able to do this here. Thank you.
Wow. And then can a staff be granted maternity leave during adoption of a baby less than 1 month old?
Sijaelewa swali.
Anauliza kama I think
there's
this one is not
adoption.
aware. There's adoption, whether somebody whether maternity leave can be granted upon adoption. I think this one has not updated themselves, but maybe you can clarify.
No, yeah. Of course, currently what we have is the adoption leave, which is by law passed last year. So, and that's 1 month. So when it's actually not full adoption, it's pre-adoption, because now you're in the process. So the court has not given you the adoption certificate, but you're in the process of adopting. So there's a stage where now you're given the certificate to now go take the child from the Children's Society and stay with the child so that they can monitor whether you are blending with the child. So the law now allows you at that point to come to the employer with that certificate that you've been given to go and pick the child, and the employer will be able to give you the 1 month pre-adoption leave. So whether you're male, female, or you are the two of you adopting, so you mnapata wote pre-adoption leave, mnaenda kubond. So that one is 1 month. Now, yeah, maternity leave doesn't count for pre-adoption. That one now falls in policy and procedures, because there are companies which give 3 months for adoption. So yeah, that one now falls within the internal policies, but by law is 1 month. And it's not the adoption certificate, but it's the pre-adoption process. Yeah.
Okay. Valentine paternity leave is 2 weeks. She's saying on paternity, when the employee requests to use the leave 3 months later, is that allowed? What is the limit for the expiry?
Paternity leave. Now, paternity leave, most of the time, again, we come back to the reason as to why paternity leave was given. So this leave was given for the gentleman to be around to assist the lady when the lady is not in a position to be able to move around. Now, when you are taking, when now you want to take your paternity leave after 3 months, we doubt because now you're going at a time when you are really not needed because paternity leave is not for bonding with the child. It's actually for helping the lady and slightly bonding the child. Because bonding the child, you'll bond the child for the rest of the years to come. So paternity leave for the staff, it must be immediate. It's only the employer who can come in and say, hey, by the way, we are in a fix. We have a board meeting and you're the person driving that board meeting. So you will give us a few days of your time to be able to close on this. Or there's this project, we are launching this. So, and you're the only person. So we are pleading. So it's an issue of, again, fair administrative actions. A process requires that you have to plead with the employee for the employee to see the reason as to why you're asking the employee to be able to go to suspend. But that thing of the staff coming to you and saying, hey, by the way, my wife has delivered, but I don't want to go now. In fact, as HR, we should really push that employee to go for that leave immediately. You should actually not entertain that aspect of employee saying, I have to postpone and go at another period here.
Okay. And Raymond, back to the data protection. Mm-hmm. We have data, they're called data officers.
Yes. The data processors, yes.
What are their qualifications, and does HR, is HR part of it, or must we go back to class? Because we are all data handlers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, there's no qualification. So it's organization specific as to who you feel can actually be able to actually, it's a lead person, because almost everybody in the organization, you process data, you handle data. So you just need what we call the data points, the central point. So we have a lead person in the organization who is now looking for that information and sensitizing us and being able to look at the risky points and being able to ensure that, yes, and also doing an audit as to the processes that everybody is going through, it's well aligned here. So for now, it's a new law, no qualifications, but as other professions, like HR also, at some point we had no qualifications. Anyone and everybody will do HR work. Procurement was the same. Everybody and anyone will be able to do the procurement work, but as we evolve. So at some point, very soon, we will have, we'll professionalize, and then now we'll have professional data handlers, professional data officers with clear qualifications. Yeah, but for now, it's free for the organizations to be able to organize and be able to get a lead person who you now do and register with the commission, with the director of the Data Protection Commission. Yeah.
Okay. And then on a different note, when a staff is given something to sign, for example, a change in terms, and then they refuse, what is the legal recourse for the employer?
Okay, now, again, that's another thin line because there are mandatory requirements or details which are required from staff to the employer. So when you look at Section 10 of the Employment Act, it spells out the details that an employee needs to give or information that an employee needs to give. If an employee fails to give those mandatory requirements as spelled out in the Act, as an employer, you have a right to be able to take disciplinary action, including termination, where you're saying, by law, I'm required to have this information from you and to keep this information from you, but because you've refused, then show cause as to why I cannot be able to terminate your employment. You will take the staff through the normal process and you disengage. That will be a lawful, you had a good reason and you did your process. However, there are some processes which are best practice, but it's not by law. There, the staff may challenge you on that best practice. But now, because your best practice is not backed by law, you may not be able to take the staff up to the tail end of disengagement. The only thing you can be able to do is, mtakuwa mnaangaliana tu macho mbaya kwa vile staff alikataa kusign your consent, but now there's nothing much you can be able to do because it's best practice for the organization, but you have no backing of the law to be able to, it's not a fair reason for termination, but it's a reason that you can be able to take some other administrative actions because of that reason of the staff failing. So they may lose out on some 1, 2, 3 things based on their failure to be able to sign some documentation here. Yeah.
All right. And then I have of late been, and from the audience, if you want to ask a question, please, you can raise your hand and we'll give you an opportunity to speak. And I wanted to read a comment by Terry before we go on. On the limit for paternity leave, some of our staff just need to be guided. I think policy would be used again, will be used to align. Otherwise, not unless there are circumstances that are allowing the delay, what will he be going to do after 4 months late? It beats the idea behind paternity leave. And I think that is aligned to what Raymond has said. Now, Raymond, there has been a lot of, okay, I don't know whether it's me or this has been happening a lot. I've been hearing a lot of cases on sexual harassment of late.
Okay.
And like this morning, there's somebody whose colleague was sexually harassed on night shifts, but she does not want to proceed with that issue. Yeah. And the HR is actually at a loss because she feels like this should not be just let out like that. But then the person who was actually sexually harassed is not willing to take any action because they feel like they'll be stigmatized. So how can we support the employees as HR professionals against sexual harassment, and us as HRs, what can we do?
Yes, it's a good question, and also it touches again on data protection and privacy, because this is personal information, something that has happened to my person, and it's information I don't want to get it there to the public. In fact, I've struggled to reach to HR or anyone in the organization to be able to disclose that this happened. So somebody has struggled. So now when they express it, that privacy needs to be respected in that, and again, you have to be very sure that that's the stand that the staff wants to take. But again, because they disclose to you as HR, you should not stop there. You need to follow up with that staff just to be able to find out that progressively they are still within their right frame of mind. Because again, it may be an issue if somebody is just depressed, and then also ask them whether they need to seek help outside the organization, or somebody who doesn't know anyone, who doesn't know the aggressor, or even who doesn't know that they work in a particular organization here. Because it's a person who needs support. Because when they say don't want this thing to be disclosed, there are also some underlying reasons as to why. But the privacy needs to be respected, and you may refer the staff for support elsewhere and counseling. Now, as an HR within the work environment, what you need to do is you'll be very open with this staff, in that you will want as much information as possible on what happened. He may not, he or she may not give you details as to the names and all that, but you may want to get as much information as possible, so that now, as a deterrent, what you'll do, you go now to the general staff population, be able to communicate. So the communication might be that, of late, we've discovered that 1, 2, 3, 4 is going on. You may even go a step further and you say, and we know the people involved. However, in this first instance, we are just cautioning you and allowing that, let this be the last, and let's not hear about it anymore. But in the event that this will proceed, then some action will be taken, including disengagement. So if I'm the person involved, when I get that message and it has been posted everywhere, it's in all our emails or in all our notices, I'll stop, because I know, hey, I've been discovered. Because, if you're an aggressor, you know I've been discovered. So you'll definitely be able to say, hey, I thought it's something that was not known, but now the good thing, my name has not been mentioned. And also the good thing, I've been told, please stop, don't repeat. If you repeat, so I'll ensure that I don't repeat and I'll stop. So as a deterrent, just get full information, then now communicate to the entire staff. It will save you, because now you're not mentioning anyone. And those who are perpetrators will know, and it will stop. But now if it continues, then now you need to escalate and now be able to take the action. So you have protected both the aggressor and the victim, and also help the victim to be able to seek support elsewhere. Thank you.
All right. And when you do, say, for example, the staff is willing to go all out, how do you protect both the oppressor's privacy and the staff?
Yes, this is also very important. And as HR also, you just need to be innovative as to how you handle the process. So one is, yes, when the person is coming out, you again need to caution the person, be able to tell the person, yes, it's good, we are committed and we have policies in place. However, it's a process that we need to protect you as the victim and even the aggressor, positive or negative, because it's still an allegation. So we say we need all facts. And then again, the innovation will be that some of these things you don't need to do them at the workplace. You may be innovative in that when you're doing the investigations, when you are calling even the aggressor to be able to share the information, please don't do them within your premises. You need to have the meeting outside your work premises, just to be able to protect the two people, because it's very sensitive, and it's information that you need to ensure that it's kept confidential, and the whole process is kept confidential, and it's only kept to the people who are supposed to know what's happening here. And even the communication back again, you ensure that it's highly confidential here. And then the people handling it, you keep stressing it to them at each and every session that you meet. They need to ensure that they keep it confidential. Yeah. So me, I'll say how you handle it. You just need to be very innovative as to how you do those meetings. Ensure that the confidentiality is maintained. So key is if you can do it offsite, the better. And it's also assure the victim and the aggressor that we are very open and we just want to find out the facts and be able to make the right call. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that is quite interesting. I want to ask James Kiogora. James Kiogora, I want you to ask a question. James Kiogora, as Terry asks her question, Terry, I have asked you to mute.
Grace, it was a request, not a question. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Terry, I've sent you an ask to unmute. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, I think I've done it right. Now, Raymond, maybe there's on the same breath about sexual harassment. There has been concerns on how to handle issues when it has been taken out in the court or rather reported to the police, and how the HR people are handling it internally. Where is the cut line? How are you supposed to separate the two, the internal process and the external process? Because it has been actually questions that are running on all the platforms that we are in, how to separate the two, because it's getting, and note that here there's a case that is ongoing from the police side, and internally you don't even have the clear facts to close the process. Maybe if it is the grievance or the disciplinary, you don't have them. Where is the cut line, internal and the external process? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. What I'll say is there are many criminal cases which happen on the workplace. So there's a distinction as to proceeding the criminal case and us handling our internal affairs based on our internal policies and procedures. And also just to mention that whether somebody is convicted on a criminal case or is acquitted, it's immaterial as to what the administrative action you took at the workplace. It's immaterial whether there was a conviction in the criminal case or whether there was an acquittal in that particular criminal case. So it may be on this sexual assault, or it may be something like that. So the critical thing will be, what have you done on your internal process and according to your policies and procedures? So for you, what you will just be looking at is there's a claim for sexual harassment, a claim for sexual assault. So you'll get a brief from the victim, be able to ask for facts from the alleged aggressor, and then now if you find, yes, there's material which seems to say there was something here, and then now, based on your processes, how you want to handle it, you want to do a disciplinary process to disengage, you have all the rights as an employer to be able to do the disciplinary process and do a disengagement with the aggressor, despite the fact that there's a criminal case which is going on in court and it will end in 1 year or it may end in 10 years. It has no relevance to your administrative action that you've taken, as long as you can be able to justify that there was an investigation internally, which you found, yes, there was some behavior which was a bit aggressive and which you are violating your policy on sexual harassment or bullying, and you took the staff through the right process in that there was a chance given to respond to the facts, and a disciplinary hearing was held, and you made a decision, which decision was communicated. If there was an appeal, everything else has been done according to the internal process here. When you take the step to dismiss the staff, no court will come to you and say, hey, this staff was acquitted. So why were you dismissing staff on account of sexual assault and yet in court has been acquitted? Or why were you terminating staff of theft when the court has actually acquitted this staff for the theft? Yeah. So there's that distinction of an internal administrative process is very different from the criminal process. So those two processes will run parallel, and you should not be able to peg your administrative process on that criminal case which is pending or the police investigations. Just do your brief independent of what the police are doing. In fact, don't rely on the police information to be able to take your action. You do your own process and then I'll be able to take action based on the facts and the evidence that has been collected. Yeah, thank you.
But sometimes it's really quite unfortunate because like I've seen quite a number of cases of theft where when it's reported to the cops, these guys go and probably pay bail or bribe themselves out. And then they come and say that they have been unlawfully terminated.
Yeah. Yes, those cases have gone to court. And the good thing, the courts have made that distinction, saying that fact that either they have been acquitted doesn't mean they did not violate the policies and procedures internally. So again, the key thing like for theft is you have to really look at your policies as to what you're calling theft. Is it theft or is it because there can be theft outright where a staff has been found carrying something which is not supposed to. Like for me, I don't even call it theft. And for me, the case I've handled, I don't call them theft. So I'll have to use a language which will distinguish the theft from the workplace. So what I'll do, if a staff has been found at the gate, walking away, I work in, let's say, Nisupalof. Then now a staff has been found at the gate, na mkate, anatoka nayo nje. Sitaita theft of that piece of bread. I'll call it, you've been found with a bread and you've not been able to explain the reason as to why you're having that bread. Na haiko kwa stock, now I see a salesman. So I'll say you are found in possession of company property, company item without permission. So you have to explain. So even when you come for disciplinary hearing, I'll not say you stole. Hutasikia mimi nikisema mbona uliiba? Kama tu mbona ulipatikana na mkate bila ruhusa. Hiyo tu, you have to explain. So all my documentation will be, can you explain why you have been found with this company property in a place which you're not supposed to be having that particular item? So it's theft, but the language you're using is not theft. So you are making it completely different from what's going on in court. Same thing to this particular thing for sexual harassment. Yeah, I'll not be saying it was assault. It's just, I use a language of the policy, which is your conduct was unbecoming, your conduct was 1, 2, 3, based on how you word it in the policy. But now for the court, there's a criminal procedure which has to call theft, and they have to prove that theft. For me, if I call you a thief here, I'll not be able to prove the theft. Because for you, you'll say, hey, it's so-and-so who had asked me to bring this bread, haikuwa yangu, kutakuwa na story ndefu. Lakini nakwambia, okay, it was so-and-so who had asked you, but why in possession of it, and yet you are not supposed to be in possession of it at this point, at this spot, yeah. So it also depends on the language. That's why at some point, yeah, if you have a challenge, there are so many of us around who you can ask, and we can be able to help you with the language. Wakati umekuwa stuck na utasaidika. Yeah.
All right. I see Terry saying, I like that, differentiating our language from the prosecutor's language. Dego says internal process should be thoroughly done, but hold for the external process. All right. My head is now, yes.
Grace, just out of That holding for the external process. Yeah, no. That one I say no, and the courts have said no. The reason is we have court cases where staff have been acquitted in court, and then now they come to the workplace saying, I've been acquitted. Once on a crucial judgment, and so you accused me of theft or you accused me of this. Can you see here? I've been acquitted. So can I have my job? Courts have said it doesn't work that way. The internal process was dealing with policy and procedures. The criminal case was dealing with criminal procedure code, and the burdens are different. In criminal case, it's beyond reasonable doubt. You have to make sure that you prove that case beyond reasonable doubt. And some of the players involved in the criminal cases are outside the employer's control. So they'll be the investigating officers are police, anaweza kuwa bribed apatiane evidence tofauti ama hata akose submit exhibits, because it's not you, the employer, who is actually giving exhibits. Those exhibits are held by somebody else. So that case may be messed up by somebody else. And the burden there is beyond reasonable doubt. In employment here, we are not dealing with beyond reasonable doubt. It's just like a relationship we have. So nikifeel tu hii relationship sikufeel sana, naweza kwambia we need to disengage. So I don't have to really justify that. Yes, the reason I have is 1 + 1 is 2. It's 1 + 1 is 1. Then I'll disengage with you because I just feel that we can't continue this relationship, and it's a serious relationship. So no one will come and accuse me that it wasn't beyond reasonable doubt. So for the measure for you to disengage with staff is very, very, that measure is very, very minimal as compared to the measure you need to prove when you're doing criminal cases here. So for me, I'll tell, please don't. And also the other rider is criminal cases take long. Some even take 10 years. So what will you do with a staff who has stolen from you? You know, all pointers are saying, yes, they were involved. Then now ungoje for 10 years. Utakuwa unafanya nini naye? Utamsuspend until that, and suspension actually should be suspension with pay. So I don't know. So do your process, take your action, make the decision, and wait for where that judgment will come from. Then you'll be able to address it here. Thank you.
All right. Winnie Chepkemoi has put it, employment termination are on basis of balance of probability.
Yeah, asante sana. Yeah, sikutaka kutumia languages
Rusungu.
mingi. Yeah, thank you.
Hatutaki Rusungu. We are from
Yes,
Mount
yes.
Kenya. We work in
Yes,
farms.
yes.
We want simple language. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the correct English. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, beyond reasonable doubt for criminal cases and balance of probability, just like civil cases, it's only a balance. So if I'm not feeling you, too bad.
All right. And okay. I think I don't see any other question. Somebody is asking whether you're going to share with us the PowerPoint.
Yeah, mtapata.
Okay. All right. So that helps. I have not seen any other question, and I think I have probably asked for the people as well, and what I have been seeing going around. You know, I'm just wondering from the Mount Kenya region. I have seen Christine. I have seen Ndegwa. I have seen Kehoro. PK, I have seen you. Hi, I have not seen you in a while. Right, and a few other people. So thank you very much. I would like to just, Ndegwa, are you able to speak? Chairman? Ndegwa, I know you. Okay, fine. Ndegwa is again in the Ukondani, so sometimes the network becomes a problem. But I think we have had a very informative session. Thank you very much, Raymond, for agreeing to join us as Mount Kenya. And we apologize. We hoped to have this physically, but I think time just kind of lapsed. Everyone got caught up, but we are glad that we've gotten to do this. The team from Mount Kenya, thank you very much for joining us. We really, really appreciate. And I hope this was satisfactory because part of this was gotten from a survey we did at the beginning of the year. on what are the needs for our region. And I hope that we have met your expectations, and please give us feedback and let us know what else you'd like to learn. Thank you very much, Raymond. It's always a pleasure listening to you, and your knowledge never just runs dry. So thank you so much for agreeing to be with us and just sharing your knowledge and your experience, and especially the recent issues in the Mount Kenya Oye. Yes, Mount Kenya Oye. So Raymond, thank you very much. And the Institute of HR, thank you for allowing us to do this. Thank you very much for enabling us to host this session for our members in the Mount Kenya region. And we hope that we shall continue engaging and just being of impact to the membership at Mount Kenya North. I know we are joined by quite a number of people, but this was specifically for Mount Kenya. So for the others, wengineo, I have seen Rachila, I have seen Jared.
Unachoma, Grace. Unachoma.
Terry, Kidateri.
Unachoma.
Lilian and Bahati. I know you guys don't belong to Mount Kenya, but thank you. Thank you very much for just making it fun and just
Mount Kenya, Grace.
Nyinyi ni Mount Kenya, sawa.
Kuzaliwa, yes. Kuzaliwa, we are there, ndamu kabisa.
And we are there in spirit.
Danson, unasikia hawa? Wanajoin.
Nawasikia sana. Nawasikia.
Anyway, you are Mount Kenyans by birth. That is fine. We appreciate you and thank you. I mean, learning doesn't stop, no monopoly of knowledge. And you hope, please invite us for yours and we will come. These things are for sharing, and thank God for Zoom, because we were able to be joined by many, not necessarily people from Mount Kenya. So asanteni sana and have yourselves a lovely, lovely evening. Thank you very much for your kind comments. We see you. If you have missed part of this, kindly note that, what do we call it? It was live on YouTube, and we will reach out. Our secretary will reach out after we get the registration link so that we can collect the IHRM numbers for your CPD points for next year. So asanteni sana and have yourselves a lovely evening. I don't know whether Raymond, you have left. Jared Dondido Muko, karibuni sana. Thank you for doing this. Nyinyi ni wa others. But it's always a pleasure. I mean, the more the merrier. Raymond, I don't know whether you have a parting shot, or we call this a day.
I'm okay. Thank you. Just to appreciate. Yeah, the active participation by the team. Yeah, we appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. And without further ado, I think you guys can go and enjoy your Friday. And we shall see you another time when another branch is hosting these things. So as always, Grace Nzula. See you on Tuesday. By the way, msisahau kukuja Tuesday in your branch. Sasa mkuja ya Tara Solutions. So yeah, moderator of choice, and have yourselves a lovely weekend. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Grace.
Bye-bye.